Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and I am super excited because I got top 32 at the Knoxville Regional Championships with Gholdengo EX. Yes, you heard right. I played Gholdengo EX to Knoxville, and I ended up getting top 32 with this deck. Now, this deck is considered a meme by a lot of people. A lot of people consider it to not be a very good deck. And I will concur and say, nah, this deck is a lot better than people give it credit for. And I also thought it was a decent meta call for Knoxville. We saw, like, Shempao, see a lot more play. Giratina was still good. Charizard was still good. Roaring Moon and Mew were very popular. This deck basically has a good matchup against all of those decks. So I'm excited to kind of talk about my list, the 60, my run in the tournament, break down the deck, the matchups, how the deck plays, strategies, and all that good stuff. All that I will talk about in today's video because I'm excited, man. Gholdengo was a really fun deck to play, and I'm really, really glad I played it. Like, it's just an awesome deck. And yeah, I was excited to finally get another day 2 and another top 32 under my belt at Knoxville with none other than a crazy deck like Gholdengo EX. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to thank you all for all the support on the content. I was away for the entire week. I was visiting Atlanta, staying with my friend Lindsay, because I've always wanted to go to Atlanta, man. Like, I love Atlanta. There's so many things down there that I actually do like. I like a lot of the rap music down there. But the big thing was I like The Walking Dead. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead, and The Walking Dead was filmed in Atlanta, so we got to see a lot of The Walking Dead sets that they filmed in Atlanta. But the big part about that was we went to the Alexandria Safe Zone, which seeing that in person, being there in person, was like it was mind blowing. Because I'm a mega fan of The Walking Dead, and to actually visit something like the Alexandria Safe Zone and see it in person was really, really cool. So I made a bit of a trip out of that. I also went to a league challenge in Atlanta, and I actually won it with the Lost Box Glasses deck. So the idea of that deck is you have super effective glasses with attackers like Tropius, Iron Hands, Mew EX, Moltres, Minior, all that stuff. I did win a league challenge with that deck leading up to Knoxville in Atlanta, and I was very confident in that deck. I was just like, okay, you know what? Well, I think I know what I'm going to play to Knoxville now. I'm going to roll up with the super effective glasses deck. But unfortunately, the deck didn't do as well as I wanted to in testing. I may have won the challenge with it, and I actually played in the mirror in the finals in the challenge. So, like, the deck was clearly good, but I don't know, man. The deck started to, like, get a bit weaker as I played it. I went to another league challenge in Atlanta, and the deck did not do me good at all. I found that the deck was losing to, like, Charizard by, like, really bad Ionos. Like, if you get, like, one bad hand with that deck, you sometimes just lose. The deck just kind of fell apart in testing, and I was just losing confidence and faith in the deck. So then I was like, oh, what the heck am I going to play? So I actually ended up going to the Shuffle Squad's Airbnb, and the most clutch thing ever. So big shout out to the Gamilla brothers, Jarek and Jem Gamilla. They actually got me on to Gholdengo. So Jarek Gamilla actually got top 32 at Charlotte Regionals with Gholdengo. So he was already doing pretty good with the deck. He already put the deck on the map, and he already got a top 32 placement with the deck. So I was like, okay, clearly the deck is good. And I was like, basically, I don't know what to play. I'm running out of options. It's the night before the regionals. I am stressing here. Like, I don't know what the heck I'm playing. We're going to roll up with some Gholdengo. And that's what I did. So Jarek and Jem basically broke down the deck, how the matchups play, what you want to do in different scenarios. So big shout out to Jarek and Jem Gamilla. You can check out my tweet here. I have them tagged. My webcam's covering it. But if you want, definitely go check out their Twitters and stuff. And I think they run, like, classes on Metafy, which probably will help you with, Gholdengo if you want to get a little bit more from them. But yeah, I was pretty excited about the deck itself because, I mean, one, it was something different. Like, I've never played Gholdengo before. Like, obviously, I've recorded videos on it, but I've never played it in person. I've never even played Palkia V-Starter Regionals. And this deck plays a 1-1 Palkia. Dude, I was so excited to play the deck. And honestly, with what I heard about the list and how it plays, I was pretty confident with the list. I was like, yeah, you know what? The more I hear about the deck, the more I hear about how its matchups play, the more I think this deck actually is good. Not to mention, a lot of people don't really know what to do when playing against a deck like Gholdengo. It's not a popular deck. It's not very used. It's considered to be, a meme / bad by a lot of people. It's just not really a deck people think about right now. And I think that does give you an advantage when playing a deck like Gholdengo, especially when you know your matchups. Coming into a tournament where people don't really know how to play against the deck that well, or maybe don't really know how this match is going to play out, I think is a big bonus that this deck does have. Speaking of bonuses, Gholdengo's got that ability coin bonus. You get to draw a card. The fun part of this deck is you're drawing cards every single turn. It's crazy. So it is Gholdengo with Palkia. We obviously know this Palkia Gholdengo deck came from Japan's Champions League, and the deck is pretty fun. Palkia V-Star is a very good attacker. I mean, there's a reason why we're seeing Palkia Ice Rider do good. It's because Palkia is just a very strong card. It does a lot of damage. It punishes the opponent for putting Pokemon in play. It allows you to use Radiant Greninja as an attacker. It's just a very strong card, and it really does flow nicely with Gholdengo. So Palkia is really good in the early game. A lot of the time, you want to go Palkia early on. You have the option to use Greninja. The deck does, of course, play the Canceling Cologne and the 4 copies of Cross Switcher. So if you ever need to go for a play with Radiant Greninja and Palkia, where you want to go Star Pearl to Greninja, Cross Switcher, Cologne up the Manaphy, and take out 2 Pokemon, the option is there. And the nice thing about this deck is it is drawing a ton of cards every turn. You have Coin Bonus, you have Pokestop, you have Irida, you have Worker, you have Greninja's own ability. You have all these ways to just draw cards that it's actually not that hard to find Cross Switcher and Canceling Cologne by like the second or third turn of the game, as long as you can set up. And that's like, I think this deck's biggest weakness is the setup. So when playing this deck, unless you're playing against a deck like Roaring Moon and maybe Cloth, I think you have to go first. So you want to go first with this deck most of the time because you are playing a Stage 1 deck. All of your main attackers are Stage 1 Pokemon. If you go second, it's not that bad because you can play supporters, you can use Gimme Ghouls, Call for Family, so you can get a better setup. But going first just gives you a big advantage because then you can start attacking on your second turn of the game, which is very important. That's one thing that they told me, Jarek and Jem were like, yeah, you want to go first with this deck a lot of the time. And yeah, going second is nice, but going first does give you a big advantage when you can find the battle VIPs. When you have like 4 Pokestop in the deck, you have Radiant Greninja's ability, 3 Nest Ball. It's honestly not that hard to get like 3 basics down turn 1. It's really not that challenging at all. So yeah, kind of the early game is mostly just down to like Palkia and Greninja shenanigans. That's mainly because Gholdengo doesn't really start ramping up until the mid to late part of the game. Obviously, when you're playing Gholdengo, you know, its attack, Make It Rain, does 50 damage for each basic energy you discard from your hand. You're not going to be able to find a bunch of basic energy cards on the second turn of the game. It's very unlikely. Even when you have a card like Earthen Vessel in the format, it's not really that good. So basically, you're just trying to, try to go with Palkia and Greninja. The one thing you'll notice, this deck plays 7 basic water and 3 metals. So the reason why we're only playing 7 waters is because, well, you don't really need to use much metal energy. Gholdengo's attack requires a single metal energy. And if you have to get an energy into play from the discard pile to attach to Gholdengo, you can always just use the superior energy retrieval to put the energy in your hands. That's why you don't really need to play, more metal than water. The water is more important because you're trying to use Greninja and Palkia early on in the game. If we were to play like, a 4-5 split of, or whatever, I don't know, like if we were playing like 6 metal, 4 water, the odds we're using Greninja and Palkia are going to be less likely. But if we're playing just 3 metals, when Gholdengo just needs a single metal to attack, and it's not that hard to get energy back, you can get away with playing just 3 metals and 7 water when you're trying to lean more into the aggression from Palkia and Greninja. One thing about this list is it plays 8 Path to the Peak counters. So when you're playing against Giratina V-Star, you don't get hurt that much by Path because, you have 4 workers and 4 Pokestop in the deck. So, like, the odds that, like, Giratina sticks a Path, as long as you are very cautious with your resources, like know when to play the worker, know when to play the Pokestop. Like just holding your resources that get rid of Path of Peak is very crucial in the Tina matchup. The Zard matchup's also insanely good. This deck arguably has its best matchup is probably Zard, if I'm gonna be honest with you. This probably has one of the best Charizard matchups in the room. The idea in the Charizard matchup is you try to stay on even prizes if possible. Never take a 1 prizer out and only get 1 prize for doing so. Don't do that. Like if your opponent has like a Mew in the active, don't just knock it out with Make It Rain or whatever. You don't do that. Try to stay on even prizes. Mainly because if you go down to 3 prizes, then all of a sudden your Gholdengos are getting 1-hit KO by Charizard, and you might lose the game. So the idea in the Charizard matchup is you can go early aggression with Radiant Greninja. You can punish the Charizard player for not getting a Manaphy down quick enough. You can immediately go Greninja, knock out a couple basics. Ideally, you want to take out their Pidgey. If they got a Pidgeot set up, you can immediately try to knock it out with Gholdengo if you can, with Cross Switchers or Boss. You can also attack with Palkia. Palkia is a very tanky Pokemon in the early game against Charizard. A lot of the time, it can get 2 attacks off before it gets knocked out by a Charizard, because it has 280 HP and Charizard's only doing 180. The big thing is, Gholdengo can 1-hit KO Charizard very easily. You do need 7 energy to discard from your hand in order to kill the Charizard, and you need 8 energy because you will need that extra energy for the attachment for turn. But getting that much energy is not that hard. As long as you conserve your resources, you play really well, you take out the Pidgeot so you can, hopefully not get Iono'd as much, the deck can be fine just, able to set up that big Gholdengo swing. A lot of the time, you only need to KO one Charizard. I had many games against Charizard in the tournament where I went Greninja, Gholdengo, one Pidgeot, and then I just KO'd a Charizard to win the game. A lot of the games weren't just go three Charizards. I was able to win the game by knocking out the Pokemon around the Charizard and then coming in at the end of the game to blow the Charizard up. So that's kind of the idea of the Charizard matchup. And because, Charizard just hits your Gholdengo, and they're not knocking it out. Now, yes, Charizard does play Radiant Charizard, which can be scary. But keep in mind, though, Radiant Greninja can hit it for weakness. If they ever bench it early, you can knock it out. But you can also just make sure they have a two-prizer in play. If they have a Lumineon, a Rotom, a Pidgeot, another Charizard in play, unless you're playing against a Charizard player who somehow just draws the absolute nuts and doesn't have a two-prizer in play, when they go Radiant Charizard against you, you should be fine in that matchup. It's not that bad. Of course, the Giratina matchup's not bad either. If they put two Giratinas down, basically what you want to do is you want to Greninja KO two Comfies, and then you just have to KO two Tinas to win the game. You also want to make sure you're being cautious of Roxanne against Giratina. And if they only get one Giratina down at a time, you can just chase it with Palkia and just try and knock out the Giratina V with Palkia. That's also part of the strategy against the Giratina matchup. The Roaring Moon matchup isn't bad either, mainly because you can trade really well with them. With Palkia, you have Greninja, you have the Gholdengo, which they have the Frenzy Gouge and knock out. Ideally, what you want to do against Roaring Moon is, a lot of the time their board will just have two Roaring Moon in play. You just want to Greninja both Roaring Moons for 90, so that your Gholdengo, if it gets KO'd, they're going to knock themselves out. That's part of the idea of how to beat Roaring Moon, is to do that. Spiritomb also is very good in this deck against a lot of different decks. So it's really good against Roaring Moon because you shut off Moltres V, which really hurts their engine. You also get to shut off Lumineon and Rotom and Charizard. It's also really good against Snorlax, and it's really, really good against Mew VMAX. In fact, Mew VMAX is debatably your best matchup, mainly because Mew VMAX can never 1-hit KO two Gholdengos. And they also struggle to take out Palkia. So that's a really good matchup for you, is, of course, Mew. I mean, I would argue your worst matchup is Gardevoir, mainly because they can trade against you. You do have the ability to try to, Greninja clone them, but the Guardy matchup is obviously going to be very tough. I also do think Miraidon can be a little close, too, mainly because if they, Iron Hands you early on, it can get really sketchy. But those are your probably, maybe hardest matchups. Miraidon saw a lot less play in Knoxville. Gardevoir was very dominant. I did dodge the Gardevoir. Thankfully, I didn't hit a single one. But that is obviously your two most awkward matchups. Not totally unwinnable, just you would probably prefer your opponent flip over a Charmander or a Mew or a Giratina or a Comfey than a Ralts or a Miraidon. That's basically how it goes. But the list felt really good. The energy count felt nice. Obviously, the Pokestops are good. Pokestop giveth, Pokestop taketh. We all have been there. I had a few bad Pokestop hits this weekend. It did happen. The Roxanne was really, really clutch. The original list that Jarek did play double Roxanne instead of just one. But they wanted to add a heavy ball in the deck. And that's what they did. They added the heavy ball in. They cut the Roxanne for the heavy ball, which I did, and honestly felt really good. The heavy ball did come up a lot. If you prize Greninja, you prize Palkia, you prize Gimmighoul, whatever, if you prize anything, you're going to need it with Heavy Ball. It's just very good, especially when you're digging for the Radiant Greninja or Spiritomb or the Manaphy. Yeah, the Heavy Ball is really clutch. The one energy retrieval in the deck was really good. Just that extra bit of energy recovery is very, very nice. Obviously, the cross switchers are insane. There's a lot of really cool plays you can make with cross switcher where if Gholdengo EX is in your active spot, you can draw two cards, and then what you can do is you can cross switcher into a Pokemon that you want to knock out on the bench, and you can promote the other Gholdengo on your bench and then draw two more cards. Instead of drawing 3 cards, you can draw 4 cards with Gholdengos, which is actually really, really cool. There's a lot of really cool plays you can make with the cross switcher and the Gholdengo. So if you want to go for a big cross switcher play in that turn, you can always promote Gholdengo, draw a couple cards, and then cross switcher into the Pokemon on the bench that you want to knock out. So that is the idea behind that. And this list felt pretty clean. The 4 worker was nice. Yeah, it doesn't really play a lot of draw cards. It literally just plays 4 worker. But when you have so much digging in the deck with Gholdengos, you got the Pokestops, the deck is very low maintenance with what it's trying to do. You're not really relying on Ionos and researches to bail you out. And yeah, it felt really clean to just have everything. So here is my tournament report. So round 1, I played against Charizard EX. Yeah, Charizard EX round 1. Good matchup once again. This matchup was actually really quick, unfortunately for my opponent. I started with Spiritomb a lot, which was kind of crazy. Obviously, Spiritomb makes it really hard for Charizard to set up early on, and that obviously helped a lot. My opponent wasn't able to use Rotom as effectively. And again, I played the matchup the best I could. I tried to stay on even prizes, take out the Pidgeot if I can, and then kind of come in with the big kill on the Charizard. Round 2, played against Snorlax. So Snorlax we thought was a bad matchup. The more I played it, though, the more I'm like, yeah, this matchup's not too bad. So I did win game 1. Spiritomb and Palkia is ideally your board state. You just want to have a Palkia in play, a Spiritomb, and then a Greninja. You can put a Gholdengo in play if you really have to, because Gholdengo is an attacker. You do also play a Canceling Cologne, so you do have a way to get around the Mimikyu. You also play 4 Cross Switcher. The bad thing in this matchup is the amount of trainers and items you play. Your opponent can really get greedy and punish you with some really bad Misfortune Sisters. I don't think I played this matchup as well as I could have. I was a little conservative with my draw. I didn't play as much draw as I wanted to in this game because I didn't want to deck myself out. But maybe looking back, I should have played a little bit more aggressively with my draw because I could have conserved more resources. Like I could have conserved my retrievals and my canceling clones. And then game 2, I might have been able to win, but I made a bit of a misplay. I had game the following turn. So the one card in my deck was an Ultra Ball, but I had game. I had Palpad, Boss, Gholdengo to win the game. My opponent had a Rotom on the bench. The problem is I didn't want to reveal the Palpad play early because then my opponent was just going to penny the Rotom off the board and then I would lose. So what I was going to do is I was going to pass and see what happened. Unfortunately, my opponent was able to Misfortune Sisters the one card in my deck, which unfortunately was an Ultra Ball, which sucked because I did Super Odd before all that happened, which could have let me have a Gholdengo win, but I drew the Gholdengos, and then, unfortunately, the last card in my deck had to be the Ultra Ball, and I decked out from Misfortune Sisters. I did have game next turn if my opponent didn't play a penny, because I was going to go Palpad, put Boss back, and then draw it with Gholdengo, Cross Switcher, Rotom, knock it out, win the game, because I had 2 prizes left. And then we tied in game 3. Probably could have played game 2 a bit better. I might have had game a bit earlier in the game, but yeah, it was a close one. Round 3 was against Giratina. Again, pretty good matchup. Just you can chase the Tinas down as long as you can get around Path to Peak. Like every time my opponent put a Path in play, I either had the Pokestop or the Worker. It's just kind of how it is. And then round 4, played against the Paradox Kyogre Lost Zone deck. So this matchup is a little interesting. I don't think it's bad per se, but it's also not like, I mean, it's not like ideal, I guess. There's a few things that can happen. Obviously, Roaring Moon can be a bit of a threat. Kyogre's a little scary. You can just obviously hold your mana fee. I was playing a little passively with my conservative resources. I wasn't trying to burn Pokemon because I actually didn't know if my opponent played Echoing Horn or not. That's something that I was really trying to play around. It was a close matchup. I think I lost game 1. So I think in game 1, I Roxanne my opponent, and my opponent drew everything they needed. I Roxanne them into a Roaring Moon, a Dark Energy, and a Mirage Gate, and then, yeah, I think I just gave them the perfect hand off of Roxanne. That Roxanne was a big lie. And then game 2, I think I kind of bricked a little bit, and unfortunately I wasn't able to catch up. The deck can tend to brick sometimes, and it did happen in game 2 of round 4. Round 5 was against Roaring Moon. Again, decent matchup. Overall, it was close, though. We actually ended up going to time, and I had to win the game on my 3rd turn. Thankfully, with the amount of draw I was able to do, I got there, and I was able to get the Cross Switcher, because my opponent's active was Morpeko. We were going to tie if I did not go to game 2. The one thing I found with the Roaring Moon matchup, though, is I actually found it to be a bit harder than I thought, mainly because if you go first, you're forced to get basics down, because if not, you're going to get run over really quickly. If you start with Palkia V, it's really bad because they can immediately take a 2-prize lead, and it becomes hard to win at that point because they can't even like use Frenzy Gouging. They can just claim to storm your own Palkia, which makes things scary. Morpeko's annoying too because they can Morpeko your Gimmighoul if you start with it. The matchup's actually a little bit closer than I thought. I think after playing this round, I realized you probably want to go second against Roaring Moon. And after that, I did start to go second against Roaring Moon. Then round 6, I played against my good friend, Kieran Farah. And of course, Kieran Farah is a good friend of mine. He's a Canadian. He's one of the pioneers of Shenpao. And what do you know? He was playing Shenpao too. I was like, bro, there's no way I hit Kieran. But yeah, I ended up beating him in the day 1 here. I did 2-0 him. It was a very close game, though. Game 2 did come down to him hitting his last superior retrieval off of a Pokestop and an Iono and a Bibarel, I think, or Greninja, too. I don't know. He drew, something like, he saw maybe 5 or 6 cards and didn't find his last retrieval. In fact, I think it was, the very next card. So it's unfortunate luck on his end, but that's what I needed to win that game. Because Kieran is a very good player. He knows how to play the matchup. Against Shenpao, Shenpao wants to go first against you. and they want to get the first 2 prize lead on you, which makes it really hard to win. And that's what he did. He went first against me. He won the coin flip in game 1. But game 1 and 2 was able to clutch out. I did have a few key plays where if he had one Bibarel in play, I would immediately chase it and knock out the Bibarel. I can't remember exactly if I had a turn where I went Roxanne, KO Bibarel with counter catcher or cross switcher, sorry. But that was ideally part of the strategy, was to chase the Bibarel if he had one in play to try to stop him from chaining KOs, and then just kind of hope he doesn't kill my active. It's just how the matchup has to play out. Round 7 was against Brian, playing another Roaring Moon deck. Pretty fun match here. Game 1 was, went pretty quick, went pretty well. And then game 2 was like a big brick fest from both of us. I think both of us were just like drawing really poorly for like 4 turns or something. I think he was playing the Pokestop and not getting very far. And then I was able to get out of my bricky draws, and I was able to get the first knockout of the game with Palkia, which put me in the lead. And then from there, just, 2-2-2. Pretty straightforward stuff. He had some pretty awkward luck with the Pokestop, but we were just joking about how Pokestop was just kind of a meme. Round 8 was against Christian, so funny enough, Christian actually played in Hartford, and I also got top 32 in Hartford, so it was kind of funny that we hit again. But yeah, Christian was also on the Shempao deck. Different list from Kieran. He wasn't playing Manaphy, which was a big deal, because like immediately I realized he was putting 3 Frigibaxes down, and I was like, is he not running Manaphy? So I think I won game 1, he won game 2, or it was the other way around. And then by game 3, he only got 2 Baxes down, and then I immediately, or only 2 Frigibaxes, and then I just Greninja'd both of them, and then he scooped from there. Because, yeah, I just killed the 2 Frigibax, and he had none other in play. And from there, he scooped up the game. But yeah, I think he was maybe playing the same list as, like, Regan and Grant Shen with the no Manaphy in the deck, which was a pretty big deal for my deck. It really did help me get the prize lead against Christian. Round 9 was against Caden. I was trying to go 7-1-1. Unfortunately, I did lose both games. I literally just bricked really badly. Every time he put a path in play, I couldn't draw out of it. Unfortunately, I probably could have won the sets, because I found that in both games, he was not able to set up a Giratina V-Star quickly. Like, I think in both games, it was like turn 4, he only had like 1 Giratina in play. If I was able to draw out of the path, I probably would have been able to win this set, because he was not getting as many Giratinas down as he wanted to quick enough, but he just had pass sticking the entire time. I would draw for turn, no worker, no Pokestop, and in game 2, I had to use a Pokestop to set up, and then I had another one in my hand. He passed me, bumped that, and then he passed me again, and then unfortunately I couldn't get rid of that last path to peak, because I just dead drew for 4 turns, couldn't draw into and out to get rid of it, and he like kind of set up checkmate from there. I really want to go 7-1-1. Little unfortunate. It is what it is. All right, round 10 of day. So yeah, first round of day 2. Played against Mew. Again, one of my best matchups. Unfortunately, I threw because I didn't prize check in game 2. So I won game 1. Game 2, I didn't prize check, and I didn't know that my last cross switcher was in the prizes. And I had game if I knew this, because I did Palpad my boss's order back in the deck. And then I got greedy, dug for the cross switcher, and then Pokestopped away my boss that I just Palpaded back. And I had no way to Gus now, and I would have lost the game because I didn't have enough energy to blow up a Mew VMAX. So I misplayed by not prize checking my cross switcher, and it ended up with a tie because of it. Really unfortunate there. Had I just prize checked, it would have been a win, because I would have known that I didn't prize my last cross switcher. So it is what it is. Round 11 was against Cloth. Cloth's a pretty good matchup, mainly because the prize trade goes well in your favor. They have to like 2-shot you, as long as you do not start with Palkia. You do not want to start Palkia, because they can donk you with Electrode, which is really, really bad. And then you probably lose the prize trade. Round 12 is against Kieran. Once again, I hit Kieran again. This time he beat me. I think both games, so I just drew suboptimally. Like game 2, for example, I opened Manaphy 5 Waters and a Superior Retrieval, which was not doing me any favors. Yeah, I did break a little bit against Kieran, and once like the Shempao deck kind of sets up like double backs, double Bidoof, or double Bibarel, you just kind of lose the game. Like, it's tough, especially when they take 2 prizes. You can't really come back from that. It's really, really hard. Round 13 was against Isaiah Marks on the Lost Zone Dragonite deck. He was playing Dragonite, Hands, and Moon, I'm pretty sure. No Kyogre. There's no Kyogre in the deck. I did ask him about that afterwards. But he didn't play Kyogre, which I was trying to play into, or play around. But yeah, won game 1 and then game 2. Was also able to win. He did have a bit of unfortunate draws there in the middle of game 2, which is what helped. I also got like a really good Roxanne against him, and I did have a crucial turn where I cross-switcher KO'd his Iron Hands, because he started Iron Hands in game 2, and I cross-switchered KO'd it later on in the game with my Palkia V-Star, which was a huge, huge play that I made to come back, and then he was just stuck spitting me. The nice thing about this matchup, and any Lost Zone matchup, even Giratina, if they're spitting into your Gholdengo and your Palkia V-Star, it doesn't really matter, unless they're trying to go spit amp you very much. It doesn't really matter that much, because the spit damage is irrelevant against Gholdengo, like, especially against Giratina. If they're spitting Gholdengo, you don't really care because Gholdengo dies anyways to Giratina. That 110 damage is practically irrelevant. Same thing with Palkia V-Star. Palkia V-Star dies to Giratina or Roaring Moon anyway, so you don't really care if they're putting 110 damage on you because it's like, okay, well, you're still going to kill me with your Giratina or Moon anyway. So that's one of the cool things about the Lost One matchups is the Cramorant, unless they're knocking out a one prizer, it becomes irrelevant when they're just spitting into your Gholdengos or your Palkias. Because like, okay, well, you're not two-shotting me with this Cram. You're also kind of, it doesn't really matter because you're already going to kill me anyways. This 110 damage isn't that relevant. I'd rather you hit something that you're already going to one-shot than something on the bench and knock it out. Round 14, I played against the legendary Michael Pramawat. He was on Tina. He had an Iono in his deck, which did catch me off guard. He said it was obviously for the mirror, which is obviously a really good tech card because the mirror match is like, obviously holding your hand, playing around Roxanne. But when you have an Iono in the deck, it really makes the mirror a lot more scarier for the player with the Iono. And Michael Pramawat obviously is one of the best players in the game. And I was pretty nervous going in this round because I'm against Michael Pramawat. I did win, though. I got really lucky game one. He Iono me to 1, and the Iono path was like, yeah, I drew a worker off the Iono to 1. Then round 2, he whiffed path off of a crucial Roxanne turn, which was pretty big. He also had to Lost Impact my Greninja. I did Greninja knock out 2 Comfies at one point in the early game, and he was forced to Lost Impact the Greninja because he didn't get a boss or counter catcher that turn, which was huge. Because obviously you don't want to Lost Impact a one prizer. It was a really crucial turn for me to do that. Round 15, playing against Brandon, who's on the Charizard deck once again, and I knew how to play the matchup really well. Again, just stay on even pricing. Went pretty well for me. Game 1, I did win. I did go for the 2-0. So yeah, game 1, he prized Manaphy, which was huge because I went Greninja early on, and then he KO'd a Pidgeot, KO'd Charizard. Same thing happened in game number 2. I went for the... What did I do again? I can't remember. Or maybe his setup wasn't as good because I think I got Spiritomb down early. I started with Spiritomb or something. I got Spiritomb and played quickly, which was huge because he couldn't do Lumineon or Rotom. And then he had a slow setup. He got a Pidgeot out, and then when he got the Pidgeot, I KO'd it, and then he wasn't able to do anything after that. He had to rely on a little bit of Pokestop luck, but unfortunately didn't get him there. And I was able to Greninja KO his Radiant Charizard he had in play. He had a Mew and a Charizard in play that I both killed with Greninja, killed the Pidgeot, and then nuked the Charizard with Gholdengo to wrap the game up. And that was it. That was my top 32 run with Gholdengo. This deck is a lot of fun to play. It's a lot better than people give it credit for because you have so many aggressive plays with the Greninja and the Palkia V-Star. There's a lot of really cool plays you can make with the deck with cross switchers. You can draw a lot of cards. It's a pretty good deck, man. I think this deck's worst matchups probably going to be Gardevoir, probably Miraidon if they turn one hands you and you can't do anything about it. It's pretty bad. The deck has a lot of good matchups in my opinion, and I think the deck is actually a really strong deck in our current format. A lot of people are sleeping on it. I don't know. Will this top 32 run make Gholdengo a lot more popular? I don't know. I hope it does. The deck's a lot of fun to play, and I really did enjoy playing it, and I'm glad I was able to get a top 32 run with Gholdengo because, again, I was going to maybe play Glass's Lost Box, which I maybe should have played. I don't know. Maybe I'm glad I played Gholdengo, but that was my other choice. I did see that Piper, she did get top 32 also with the Glasses Lost Box deck. So maybe it was a good call to play the deck. I don't know. But I am glad I played Gholdengo. It's a bit of a weirder deck and a bit of an off-meta deck, which I'm glad I played an off-meta deck to regional and did well with it. I think that's really cool. But yeah, there you go. That is my full top 32 breakdown and run of the Knoxville Regionals. I do want to thank everybody who did come up to me and said hi this weekend and got me to sign something, take a picture with them, and all that good stuff. It does mean a lot, and I'm glad that I met a lot of people this weekend. It's a lot of fun meeting subscribers and stuff. Really, really cool stuff. And I'm glad I met some of y'all. And a lot of people came up to me and said that they, I was the reason they got back in the game and all that stuff, and they found my channel and all the fun rogues I do. So I do want to thank everybody for all the support this weekend at Knoxville. Really fun time. I would honestly play Gholdengo again. If I was going to Vancouver Regionals, I would probably play Gholdengo again. If there was a regional next weekend that I could go to, I would 100% play Gholdengo again. This deck's a lot of fun. The 60 is potentially perfect. I think it's a really good deck. Going to get better with rotation too, in my opinion. So be ready for the Gholdengo to become even more popular in our new format. Thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.